Hello and welcome back to the Soul Sync podcast. I'm psychic medium Jason Paul. Now, there are some journeys in life that take us thousands of miles across countries, across cultures, to places that we may have spent years dreaming about. And then there are some journeys that happen without us moving an inch, and that's the journey inwards. Now, my guest today, Michael Dove, is a man whose own search has taken him across the world through different spiritual traditions into the Himalayas and to India, where he has spent almost 6 years of his life. And his story got me thinking about this idea of pilgrimage. Now, many of us tend to think of a pilgrimage as somewhere we go, a sacred place, a destination, perhaps the bank of the Ganges. But what if the real pilgrimage of our lives is happening inside us all the time? Now, in 2020, Michael arrived in India just days before COVID changed the world. As other Americans were literally evacuated, Michael decided to stay. Tourists disappeared, pilgrims disappeared, and this ancient holy city suddenly became incredibly quiet like never before. But then something else happened. Michael became part of the local community, and alongside friends there and supporters elsewhere, he helped create meals on the Ganges, providing food for people who suddenly found themselves without the support that they normally relied on. And during our conversation, he shares a teaching that stayed with me. The quickest way to enlightenment: feed the hungry. Now, I love that because perhaps spirituality isn't always about searching for something extraordinary. Perhaps sometimes it's just about what we do with the life directly in front of us, the people we meet, the experiences that challenge us, the moments that appear to take us completely off course. Because Michael and I also explore some much bigger questions today. Why are we here? Can the difficult experiences of our lives actually have a deeper meaning? What is the soul actually trying to experience? And how do we recognize when something inside us is calling us towards another path? This is my conversation with Michael Dove. Enjoy. Michael, welcome onto the Soul Sync.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jason. I've been very much looking forward to talking with you and sharing, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I do as well. And as I was saying to you just before we hit the record button, that there's so many rabbit holes we can go down in these types of conversations. So I guess to begin with, tell the lovely listener a bit about you.
Okay, let's see. Grew up in Southern California. I've spent my life kind of pursuing my curiosity about the soul and the world and spirituality and such. So my curiosity has been kind of my guide. So I've spent a lot of time in India, about almost 6 years living in India, traveling around Asia and to the Himalayas about 6 times. And I've dabbled in just about everything from spiritualism to shamanism, past life work. I've done I performed, guided and facilitated hundreds of past life regressions for people since about 1988. And let's see, and been involved with spiritual community, different kinds of spiritual community around the world, like in Europe and the United States. The spiritualist community in Southern California as well. Native American spirituality. I've had a number of Native American.
Blimey, if you had a spiritual resume, it would be about 20 pages long, wouldn't it? There's a lot. There's a lot on there. What drew you into this in the first place? When did it all get started for you?
Let's see. I started off as an artist and a painter, and my painting was very about futuristic and about the universe and such. And so that kind of got me. I was very much in the mode of observing things very closely. And so it was a kind of an early, during my childhood and teen years, a way of kind of disciplining my focus so that when I looked into things, I could kind of absorb it and learn kind of like its nature and such. So it's just that is a quality that kind of served me.
The ability to observe the stillness and just pay attention to a particular item or object.
Precisely. Yeah, precisely. And because, people have asked me for years, like, how did I get to be like a spiritual teacher and to hold workshops and travel and do the different things? And then I tell them, the answer that I tell them seems much too simple for most people because they tend to not read me. And the answer is that I simply pay attention. You see, and simply paying attention. And that has been like the key that has allowed me to make the kinds of connections in order to kind of step and navigate. And so that has been a quality that has kind of led me to some extraordinary situations, really profound individuals and some really amazing power spots and such. So it was like I learned how to kind of navigate and continue to move forward. And so it's been as if I was sort of built for the journey, if that makes sense.
It does. It will observing and paying attention. How often do we actually pay attention in our lives? I think for a lot of people, their awakening, so to speak, starts as a result of becoming more aware and paying more attention, and perhaps, that's kind of what happens, isn't there? Something that piques the curiosity, but it goes further. That how often do we go through life? You think we're paying attention and we're not.
Yeah, exactly. Because usually what the impetus for that mode is often a very traumatic kind of thing, you see. So it's like instances in one's life that are very difficult and challenging. Kind of, it has this quality of planting the seed of this curiosity, meaning that there is something to figure out. There's something to know that is critically important to your well-being. And so this is a circumstance that tends to launch people on a. Can
you give a few examples of that and what that looks like for people in your experience?
Oh, yes. It's when there is a disruption, say in a relationship, or a disruption in their life, and it could be like an illness. It could be like something that is like an accident or something, and it's something that is traumatic that requires thought, and it requires observation, and people need to figure out what happened. You see, what went on, so that they could at least avoid it. And often it happens in the context of being tricked or betrayed, if you will.
Yes, to have loved someone and to perhaps them have done something to you that's not particularly nice, I guess.
Exactly, exactly. And it could be in any form, in interpersonal relationship, or even in just the expectation of what your life was supposed to be, and then having that get disrupted or dismantled. So many people, when they talk about their spiritual journey, point to instances where everything fell apart.
Yes, because normally it tends to almost be like a volcano erupting for a lot of people. I think it was to me.
Yes, 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 indeed. And so the the impetus to search, the impetus to look outside yourself in order to recover, survive, reconstruct yourself, to repair, is something that propels people often on a spiritual journey or a path, or to an inquiry about their soul nature, or the nature of the universe itself, you see. And so these events are not necessarily like the negative catastrophes that we tend to think of. Often, when people are finally established in their purpose and on their path, they may look back on the events, the traumas, the events that initiated them, and they will see them very, very differently, you see. And this is kind of like what I help people do. So much of when I'm counseling a person on a spiritual level, so much of it is about the reframing of pivotal, key, consequential events in such a way that allows them to get in touch with their larger mission, you see. And in the mission.
What do you mean by that? Because I understand what you're saying about the reframing there. It's an interesting, because I guess you could look at something terrible that had happened, be hanging on to the pain of that particular thing that's then holding you back in your life. So the reframing, I guess, could be stand back from yourself and look at yourself through love and applause of how far you've come. So I understand that. But about the mission, how does that tie in?
Okay. All right. It's interesting because it's like taking it a bit further than just, like a standard therapeutic aim, to take it as an opportunity to ask the deeper questions that pertain to one's soul mission, or what I think of as one's soul design, in terms of why someone even decided to come here in the first place, why they bothered to occur, you see.
Well, yes, why did they sign up a soul contract? Why did you put your hands up? Why did you decide to incarnate? What does that look like? Yes.
Exactly. All that cluster of questions that get one into the zone where one starts to begin to perceive like the real picture, the real answers, and why they chose, and of course why they chose the trauma that particular challenging initiation.
We'll be right back.
If you're interested in mediumship, I'd love to invite you to something a little bit special. On Friday, the 28th of August at 7:30 p.m. UK time, I'm hosting a free online evening of mediumship with the wonderful Nicola Farmer. It'll be an evening of spirit communication, love, laughter, and connection. It's completely free, live on Zoom, and absolutely everybody is welcome. You'll find all the joining details in the episode notes, and I'd love to see you there. And for lots of people, they're not even going to realise, it's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? That perhaps this wasn't just chance. This wasn't just something that happened. There was a greater, more meaningful significance. And even the sheer thought of presenting to someone or them becoming aware of the fact that this terrible thing that happened in their life, they could have chosen that in their soul. But a lot of people, how do you even come to comprehend that? Because that's a big pill to swallow for lots of people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very, very challenging, and people have to be ready, quite frankly.
Yes.
And often the people that come to me, they tend to come to me when they are ready for that particular kind of inquiry, that particular kind of journey, because these, in this cluster of questions that address things on a deeper soul level, one tends to get into who was the person or who was the being that could make such a decision. What was the quality of being that gave them the strength, the impetus, the capacity to even raise their hand and say yes. I will go through this out of love or compassion. I will express the compassion or love or generosity of the universe itself. You see, and these are and the magnitude and the dimension of soul level decisions that people make, or even discovering that they are capable of such.
Who was that being that put their hand up and signed up to it? And where is that within me now? And what part of that is me? And what does it look like? Because for a lot of people, they could probably be thinking, well, I don't feel that particularly empowered in my life right now. I'm happy to accept that I signed up for the good things, but that terrible thing, Michael, that wasn't me.
Yes, exactly. And, but there's something that is healing and empowering if one can begin to see what we could call the true magnificence of who they, the choices that are made at a much more transcendent level. And I found that with working with people, it's like when they're able to make that connection, all right, it shifts how they sit in their life. It shifts how they sit in the particular journey that they're on. You see, and that's kind of what we're going for. As I said, as people tend to come to me when there's a readiness.
An activation on some level or another. Something has made them knock at your door, so to speak.
Exactly. And whether they fully understand it or not, you see. So it's so much guided, as you would certainly know, guided by the soul. And, and so much of what I do is to sort of simply be there when they're ready. You see, it's kind of like being the midwife, if you will. It's like, the little baby's going to get born. You weren't necessarily there at the inception, and it's inevitable. And so your job is to really be the greeter, catch the one when they show up and help them orient.
Well, you seem like a beautiful spiritual midwife, Michael. I think if I was going to be reborn, I think I'd like you to be there for that. Because what you're helping people to do is to activate their soul's own intelligence. But how would you explain to people how to do that, what that is?
Yes. It is. Initially, all I can do is sort of hint at the concept. and
Be very gentle. Yes.
and oh yes, I have been expecting you. Welcome. And
like Morpheus from the.
Yeah, exactly.
Which pill do you want? I can see it now. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so often in a kind of a Socratic sort of way, I might ask particular like questions that are designed to kind of jog a memory. And they're leading questions as such as, why do you suppose this particular kind of trauma occurred? And say, these are the kinds of individuals that you are starting to connect to. All right, what might be a connection? And so it's kind of very gently triggers a kind of realization, and go over like the things that they may be suspecting on the periphery of their thought, on the periphery of their awareness. And then
well, you're trying to ask questions to get to the root, aren't you? Very carefully worded questions to kind of detangle what someone may feel is the issue and get down to the root point. I'm guessing in where that exists.
Yes, indeed. And so much of it is about a kind of, I had a dear friend describe me as one who is capable of spiritual friending. You see, just simply being there and saying, welcome, dear one. Welcome, dear spirit. It's been kind of a rough go, hasn't it? Well, let's sit and talk about it. Let's reflect on it. And so there's that very gentle, very, very conscious awakening of the memory and that particular awareness. And it's not the way that I work, of course, is not to make a declaration for them to say, oh, yes, you're this, that, or the other. It's more important for them to be able to come to their own conclusions, of course. And I'm simply mirroring and validating and welcoming them, because in a sense, it's like, well, I'll tell you a story. Okay. I was invited to go down to Mexico and visit a very well-known, very amazing Yaqui medicine man. And it was a kind of like, just kind of like the chatter about who this Yaqui medicine man was. If you've ever read the books by Carlos Castaneda, The Journey to Ixtlan, or a separate reality, and all of that. Apparently, he was the Yaqui medicine man that Carlos Castaneda kind of interviewed for the book. So the chatter was that this was actually Don Juan. And so I went down to Mexico, little village, very, very poor, dirt floor houses and all of that. And I met this wonderful native gentleman who only spoke Spanish. And there were a few people around him and such, and very, very sweet, very wonderful, very, very joyous kind of energy. But the thing was that when I met him, I'll have to preface it like this. If you've ever been to like a family reunion where you meet old uncles and aunts and grandparents and blah, 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 and older relatives that remembered you when you were a baby.
Yes.
And you look at them and then you go, okay, you know stuff about me that I can't even remember. I can't even imagine about myself, but you've got stories about me that I don't even know. Okay. All right. So I'm gone down to Mexico. I didn't speak Spanish or much Spanish at the time. I meet this small, very elderly, like medicine man, but very sweet, very joyous and everything. And then I look at him. All right. And I get the distinct feeling that he knew me when I was a baby.
How interesting.
It's as if he were there and he said, oh, yes, I know you when you were just crawling around in diapers and stuff. And it's like I've never met him before in my life.
Well, also, how the hell does he recognize me from a baby?
Yeah,
And all those, a baby is a baby.
Exactly. It's like, how does he know me? And so this was a very, very powerful impression upon me. And just the recognition, the simple seeing and the recognition shifted something very, very profound. It was as if my reality was sort of put on edge.
I can imagine.
Yes. And so this was like a quality that always stuck with me, as to how does one become like this one? Because we interacted, got along very, very well. It was a very, very sweet, interaction, and I visited him several times, and everything. And so, but it was a very pivotal in the sense of what I seem to have absorbed in terms of my own way of meeting people.
Are you meaning sort of the way that he recognized your energy and knew that he'd met you, so it made you sort of look at how you're walking through your life? Or
exactly that there was the recognition and the acceptance and the profundity of his knowing was quite profound, and an experience. But for me, that has been kind of like an energetic model, if you will.
What age was you when that happened?
Pardon?
What age was you when that happened?
I was I was about 33, I think, something like that.
Yeah, because I'm looking at your background, because obviously you went into this by artistry, and I was feeling to myself, okay, I can understand how that kind of got you aware of the stillness, but was it perhaps this moment that you acted as the catalyst for you to really start looking at things in more detail?
Well, yes, indeed. And not only that moment, but there were several. So there were all of these combined experiences that were, just quite amazing and fantastic all along the way. You see, so I think this was an experience that kind of shifted my sense of trajectory and the intensity and the sense of permission to look deeper, to expect more. And there was another experience that I had with a gentleman who was quite well known named Bill Bauman. And I just crossed paths with him maybe twice, but he left me with one rather important key, which was that he was understood to be kind of, very much a spiritual master in himself. And the key that he kind of left me was that the human story, the journey, the individual, the human story can be completed. Meaning that the path, the human path, you can encompass every, aspect of it, and then graduate and become a more fixed kind of figure that is sort of hovering above the human drama, or the collective human drama. And for me, that was like something, wow, that was all I needed to hear.
How would you explain that to people listening to this? Because I understand what you're saying there, to kind of rise above the day-to-day of life. But what does that look like in practice?
Okay. What that looks like is that there's a kind of a peace and a clarity which one always references or operates from, just quite naturally. So in a sense, it's like the state of having graduated. All right. And it makes its expression, I think, most clearly in the form of service. It's like how one serves and addresses and engages people. It's more from a gentle, loving parent that just simply knows. And so there's a kind of sweetness, okay, that one naturally sort of operates from. You see, so when people like present their distress or issues or drama or whatever, it's like, yes, and this you may want to disentangle it like this, thusly, and so it's a very, very subtle kind of knowing where one sort of transcends the storms, if that makes sense.
Yes, I almost look at it myself, as I used to get so lost in the day-to-day of my business. Every day was another stress, because there'd always be something going on. And then, I got to a place in my life where I came through the kind of the stage of life you're describing, where now I don't, yes, things can annoy me a bit, but I don't get too lost in the day-to-day background noise of life, because I feel that, oh yes, I've arrived in that place. Some people go through their life though, where that might happen to them, very early in their life, or perhaps, in their 60s. And some people, I think, go for their whole life and they pass to the spirit world, never having kind of got to that place, because...
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's like hearing that particular key. What it did was that it energized me to hurry up and finish. Okay, my
the upgrade.
I wanted to experience everything and observe even more, to sort of move through, i.e., to kind of finish the story. Finish the story, and it was just enough to hear that such a thing was possible.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Because you spent a lot of time as well. I've only ever watched documentaries about it, the Ganges. As much as I'd like to think I'd be the sort of person to go there, I'm not the best person in big, massive crowds. So I'm not sure that I'd last 2 minutes down at the Ganges. But what was it like? Because you didn't just go there. You actually served down there, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And that's a big thing to do.
Yes. Oh, thank you. It was like I arrived there in 2020, days before the COVID hit.
Oh, goodness me.
I arrived there and sort of gotten, quote unquote, stuck there. And so I decided not to evacuate with the other Americans, but I thought, okay, I'll just stay. I'll just stay here and see what happens. So what happened was that I became kind of integrated into the community, the local community. So I was staying in a guest house that was just right on the banks of the Ganges. From my room, balcony, I could just see the Ganges. And so I spent lots of time this was in the city of Varanasi, which is like one of the oldest living cities in the world. And so it's a holy city. And so during that time, tourism kind of ceased, basically. There were no tourists coming in. There were no pilgrims coming into the holy city.
Probably the first time ever in its history. So I can't imagine what it would have been like to have been there in that time anyway.
Exactly. It was really quite extraordinary because I was experiencing the Varanasi of hundreds of years ago. No tourists, and it very, very quiet. But the difficulty was that the holy men, the babas, the sadhus and such were not getting because in their tradition is that they have their begging bowl and such. And so they're able to survive. So what we did, to make a long story short, myself, my friends there in India, and being in contact with friends and students and families in the States, we put together an international charity that we called Meals on the Ganges, and began to cook food and create these boxed meals, which we distributed to like the holy people, along the Ganges, but also the very, very poor and desperate communities in the area as well. And it was good because I was able to hire a number of people in the community to keep us some money happening in the family at the same time. And so, and this went on through the height of the pandemic. So it's like for a number, 6, 7, 8 months, we just sort of did this, and then took care of whole families and things like that. We eventually served about over 6,000 meals.
Blimey. We have something in this country called Meals on Wheels, which we give to the older generation. You sound like you were doing Meals on Wheels yourself out there.
Yes, exactly. And it was quite an amazing experience. Very, very powerful for me. It was like there was a saint down in southern India named Valalar, who said famously that the quickest way to enlightenment, when he was asked, what's the quickest way to enlightenment? He said, feed the hungry. And that's it. And for me, whether I'm enlightened or not, who can say, but the sense of pushing through all kinds of resistance and challenge and engaging so directly with people in need and thinking about them and being of just service was very transformative. It was there was a certain initiatory quality to it. And so it was it was just a very, very pivotal experience for me. So I feel like I got a lot more than I
could imagine. What a crazy thing to do. And I love that because I'm sometimes don't follow the herd mentality and the fact that all the other Americans were leaving and then there was you. Well, you turned a bad negative into a massive positive. You could have just gone back to the States and sat at home and probably been miserable like every other person, but you turned it into something, didn't you?
Yes. It was.
You reframed it, bringing us back to that.
Exactly. It's turning something that was seemingly catastrophic into something that was just edifying for everyone involved. So I'm still in contact with the key people involved and everything, and everybody just sort of smiles when we think about that period of time as being just so meaningful.
I wanted to ask you as well, because so much of your work is about guiding people out of patterns and wanting to change their life in some way. And, I know there's a few things in my life I want to change. How do you help people do that? We're going to have people as well listening to this that might think, yes, this is an area I want to change. I want to change careers. I want to change homes. I've got aspirations and dreams, Michael. How do I go about breaking out of these old patterns that are holding me back?
Yes. I think that looking at, people who have come to me, the first thing I do is assess if they are ready. If I'm feeling the, the readiness.
It's one thing to say it, perhaps. It's another thing to be ready, isn't it?
Yeah. And yes, exactly. And you have to look at other aspects of their life and such. So much of that longing to be different, to do different, I suggest comes from the soul. That there is a soul origin to that. Okay, meaning once again, the pattern or the reason that they decided to incarnate in the first place. So when sorting out what the next step will be, it's important to kind of to reference, consult that aspect of their being first. Now, it's kind of interesting because I encounter a number of people, and it may just be the kind of people I encounter too, that what they're meant to do, what they're meant to change and transform into, may not even have a name yet. You see, it may not even be a category that people, the collective, the society, even recognizes yet. And so much of what I do when people come to me with that wanting to change is to kind of craft an idea of what that even looks like for them. You see, what it looks like for them, because often they're going to have to be the person, the individual that even names and defines that role. And to make it a little bit clearer, it's kind of like when we think of like coaches and influencers and people like that. When we say that word now, everybody kind of knows what we mean because it's now a thing. It's a thing we all recognize and we use that word a lot. But 20, 30 years ago, when you wanted to say, I want to be an influencer.
You want to be a what, Michael?
Yeah. Okay. What is that? That doesn't exist yet. Or I'm a coach. It's like, well, what, like basketball or, baseball or cricket or what kind of a coach are you? And so, but people who had these aspirations already existed, or they're already there. And so they had the challenge of crafting even the category. You see what I'm saying? And so a lot of what I find myself doing is helping people who are very creative. They're very brilliant individuals, and they have something, and you can truly see it there in their heart, in their soul, a destiny that is causing the longing and the desire to change in the first place. That's actually fueling the dissatisfaction of their circumstances that they're in.
I know I should be doing better than this. I know I should be over here in my life, or I should be over here, and I'm not. And it's almost like a frustration, a burning kind of desire, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And so helping people sort of recognize, like where the seeds of where that comes from, but the very, very real destiny that is there for them to connect to is the way that launches them, that propels them along their journey. Because the whole idea is for it to be soul aligned. That's the issue. Do you see what I'm saying? It's that people are not aware of the misalignment. They're not the misalignment that they're experiencing. You see,
yeah. And so, it makes sense if someone's operating out of a place that's a misalignment with what their soul contract is or their soul's destiny is. That's going to at some point in you start to make you not feel right because you're not doing what you've effectively your soul signed up to do, are you?
Exactly. So much of what I do is kind of like guide and help them sort of interpret and kind of disentangle their thinking so that they can have that clarity and to be able to navigate their path. It's like much clearer in a much more decisive and deliberate way. So again, it's like people that come to me often have some sense that it's a soul level issue. They see that they're needing at least another pair of eyes, hopefully, wise and competent eyes that can help.
Well, I guess that's why they're coming to the spiritual midwife that's you, Michael, rather than their standard doctor at $200 an hour or whatever it might be. But it's very interesting, and I feel that you've got such a rich tapestry of experiences. So on that note, in Soul Sinker tradition, leave us on a final thought today then, Michael. And if you do want to find out more, just go to the show notes. All Michael's details will be there.
Okay. Yes. The important thing, the thing that I try to help people become acclimated to or to realize is the nature of the journey. Okay. The why of the journey, and often even the very fact that they are on a journey, and that life itself is an experience of pilgrimages, that we've been set upon these pilgrimages, whether we fully realize it or not. And the pilgrimage that I try to illuminate, sort of illuminating the path here, is that it has two aspects. There's the external pilgrimage. It's like how you navigate, how do you get to, places like, the Ganges or the Himalayas or South America or Greece or wherever. How do you navigate that? But perhaps even more importantly, there's the inner pilgrimage that's actually going on, that is truly kind of guiding everything, and that you can't really do one without the other. So it's like to become situated in this inner pilgrimage, as this journey to the soul. And the journey to the soul has as many distractions and cul-de-sacs and ditches that one can get stuck in along the way to the center, to the soul.
We don't all take the bullet train on these journeys. We like to. I like to take a journey round the houses, we might say it.
Exactly. And so much of what I've helped people to do is not to get stuck. It's like, how do you extract yourself from the cul-de-sacs and get back on track? So being an inner navigator,
Like the breakdown AA service. If someone gets stuck down a spiritual ditch, Michael's here to help.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And people, when they have that particular kind of guidance, the shifts are very spontaneous. It's like there's a natural opening, and it has this impact the external pilgrimage as well. So suddenly you find yourself more in the right places at the right times more often, to the degree that begins to become your norm, that you are naturally finding yourself in the right place at the right time. And this is just the experience that you have.
Things are coming into alignment, it sounds like, doesn't it? But it's very true what you say about the inner pilgrimage, because even in the work I do as a medium, the real work of mediumship isn't the sitting there doing the readings and practicing the technical skills. It's the inner experience, the inner work that you really have to do to be able to do the work. And people don't realise that at the beginning of the journey, and you only realise that when you get a bit older and a bit wiser, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And learning just how to recognize the initiations that you're going through, and to understand that you're going through them, that you don't necessarily camp out there and stay in the trauma or stay in the helplessness, that it's about transiting through.
I agree. Well, Michael, it's been a delight. Thank you so much for coming on to the Soul Sync.
Well, thank you for having me. I had a very, very good time. Most delightful conversation.
Well, maybe that's the thought to leave you with today. We spend so much of our lives, don't we, convinced that the answer is somewhere else. Another place, another person, another achievement, another version of ourselves. And yes, sometimes go to India, climb the mountain, sit beside the Ganges, book the retreat, buy the slightly questionable crystal you absolutely did not need. But don't forget that the most important journey you'll ever take might be the one that asks you to stop searching outside of yourself for just that moment and to listen to what is already trying to emerge from within.